Chris Grier, the man tasked with shaping the Miami Dolphins roster, is walking a tightrope heading into the 2025 offseason. The financial situation is dire, and it's clear that his decisions over the coming months will determine not only the trajectory of the team but also the fate of his own career. With 24 players potentially heading into free agency, this isn't just about making tough calls, it's about navigating an impossible scenario and finding a way to come out on the other side intact. The stakes? Everything. The Dolphins are carrying over just $3.001 million from 2024 into the 2025 season. That's not a typo, that's the figure. Compare that to teams like the San Francisco 49ers, who have a staggering $50 million rolling over, or the Cleveland Browns, with $41 million at their disposal. Even the New York Jets, sitting at the bottom of the league, managed a $345,000 carryover. Miami's situation feels like trying to bail water out of a sinking ship with a spoon. It's not enough, and it shows just how much of a hole they're in. Add that paltry $3 million to the books, and the Dolphins are still $11.9 million in the red. Even with an anticipated bump in the annual salary cap, it's a grim picture. This kind of financial crunch forces decisions that aren't just difficult, they're agonizing. Sure, the team could explore contract restructures and roster cuts to free up space. The math has been done, and hypothetically, Miami could clear over $16 million with some savvy moves. Add a few more creative restructures, and they might find another $20 to $30 million to work with. On paper, that sounds like progress, but it's a dangerous game. Pushing money into future seasons can create flexibility now, but it's the NFL equivalent of living paycheck to paycheck. The future always comes knocking, and when it does, the price will be steep. For Chris Grier, the decision to play this game isn't just about the Dolphins' future, it's about his own. If Miami stumbles in 2025, it's hard to imagine ownership sticking with him. This is a franchise that hasn't been shy about its aspirations, and falling short again isn't an option. But when your job is on the line, long-term consequences tend to take a back seat to short-term survival. It's human nature, and Grier is no exception. If pushing cap space into 2026 buys him the roster he needs to make a playoff run in 2025, it's a gamble he'll likely take. Whether that gamble pays off or blows up spectacularly remains to be seen. Free agency is just around the corner, and the clock is ticking. March 12th is the date when the chaos begins, and right now, the Dolphins are anything but ready. With limited cap space, retaining key players is going to be a monumental task. And even if they manage to keep some of their own, how do they compete with teams that have significantly more financial firepower? Other franchises will be circling like vultures, ready to poach talent Miami can't afford to retain. The AFC is brutal. The Kansas City Chiefs, Buffalo Bills, and Cincinnati Bengals aren't going anywhere. They've set the bar, and Miami isn't just chasing them, they're trying to keep from falling further behind. If the Dolphins enter 2025 with a weakened roster, the gap between them and the conference's elite could become insurmountable. That's the nightmare scenario. It's not just about failing to win, it's about losing relevance altogether. The weight of this offseason can't be overstated. Every move Grier makes will be dissected. Every contract restructured, every player released, every dollar spent, it's all going to be under a microscope. This is what happens when expectations collide with reality, and reality isn't kind. Grier doesn't have the luxury of making mistakes. The Dolphins' window to compete is open, but only just. Squander this opportunity, and that window could slam shut faster than anyone expects. There's no escaping the urgency of the moment. The Dolphins have just over 2 months to sort through their financial mess and figure out how to field a competitive team. That means tough conversations, painful decisions, and a level of creativity that borders on desperate. The path forward is treacherous, but there's no alternative. This isn't just about 2025. It's about the future of the Miami Dolphins as a whole. A misstep here doesn't just set the team back for one season, it could derail the progress they've made over the past few years entirely. For a fan base that's been starved for success, that's a gut punch they shouldn't have to endure. The Dolphins have flirted with greatness, shown flashes of what they can be, but turning those flashes into something sustainable feels like a distant dream right now. And what of Chris Grier? His position is as precarious as the team's. If he can't pull a rabbit out of his hat, it's hard to imagine he'll still be calling the shots a year from now. The clock is ticking, the pressure is mounting, and the stakes couldn't be higher. This is the moment that defines careers and legacies. For Grier and the Dolphins, it's do or die.